The Invitation, Section 1, from the first part of Preparation for a Christian Life by Soren Kierkegaard, translated by Lee M. Hollander. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Preparation for a Christian Life, first part, comprising about 1/4 of the whole book. Come hither unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Matthew chapter 11, verse 28. The Invitation, Section 1. Come hither. It is not at all strange if he who is in danger and needs help, speedy, immediate help, perhaps, it is not strange if he cries out, "Come hither," nor is it strange that a quack cries his wares, "Come hither, I cure all maladies." Alas, for in the case of the quack, it is only too true that it is the physician who has need of the sick. Come hither, all ye who at extortionate prices can pay for the cure, or at any rate for the medicine. Here is physic for everybody who can pay. Come hither. In all other cases, however, it is generally true that he who can help must be sought, and when found may be difficult of access. And if access is had, his help may have to be implored a long time. And when his help has been implored a long time, he may be moved only with difficulty. That is, he sets a high price on his services, and sometimes, precisely when he refuses payment, or generously asks for none, it is only an expression of how infinitely high he values his services. On the other hand, he, Christ, who sacrificed himself, he sacrifices himself here too. It is indeed he who seeks those in need of help, is himself the one who goes about and calls, almost imploringly, "Come hither." He, the only one who can help, and help with what alone is indispensable, and can save from the one truly mortal disease. He does not wait for people to come to him, but comes himself without having been called, for it is he who calls out to them. It is he who holds out help. And what help! Indeed, that simple sage of antiquity, Socrates, was as infinitely right as the majority who do the opposite are wrong, in setting no great price, whether on himself or his instruction, even if he thus, in a certain sense, proudly expressed the utter difference in kind between payment and his services. But he was not so solicitous as to beg anyone to come to him, notwithstanding, or shall I say because, he was not altogether sure what his help signified. For the more sure one is that his help is the only one obtainable, the more reason has he, in a human sense, to ask a great price for it. And the less sure one is, the more reason has he to offer freely the possible help he has, in order to do at least something for others. But he who calls himself the Savior, and knows that he is, he calls out solicitously, "Come hither unto me." Come hither, all ye. Strange, for if he who, when it comes to the point, perhaps cannot help a single one, if such a one should boastfully invite everybody, that would not seem so very strange, man's nature being such as it is. But if a man is absolutely sure of being able to help, and at the same time willing to help, willing to devote his all in doing so, and with all sacrifices, then he generally makes at least one reservation, which is to make a choice among those he means to help. That is, however willing one may be, still it is not everybody one cares to help. One does not care to sacrifice oneself to that extent. But he, the only one who can really help, and really help everybody, the only one, therefore, who really can invite everybody, he makes no conditions whatever, but utters the invitation which from the beginning of the world seems to have been reserved for him. Come hither, all ye. Ah, human self-sacrifice, even when thou art most beautiful and noble, when we admire thee most, this is a sacrifice still greater, which is to sacrifice every provision for one's own self, so that in one's willingness to help there is not even the least partiality. Ah, the love that sets no price on oneself, that makes one forget altogether that he is the helper, and makes one altogether blind as to who it is one helps, but infinitely careful only that he be a sufferer, whatever else he may be, and thus willing unconditionally to help everybody. Different, alas, is this from everybody. Come hither unto me. Strange, for human compassion also, and willingly, does something for them that labor and are heavy laden. One feeds the hungry, clothes the naked, makes charitable gifts, builds charitable institutions, and if the compassion be heartfelt, perhaps even visits those that labor and are heavy laden. But to invite them to come to one, that will never do, because then all one's household and manner of living would have to be changed. For a man cannot himself live in abundance, or at any rate in well-being and happiness, and at the same time dwell in one and the same house together with, and in daily intercourse with, the poor and miserable, with them that labor and are heavy laden. In order to be able to invite them in such wise, a man must himself live altogether in the same way, as poor as the poorest, as lowly as the lowliest, familiar with the sorrows and sufferings of life, and altogether belonging to the same station as they whom he invites, that is, they who labor and are heavy laden. If he wishes to invite a sufferer, he must either change his own condition to be like that of the sufferer, or else change that of the sufferer to be like his own. For if this is not done, the difference will stand out only the more by contrast. And if you wish to invite all those who suffer, for you may make an exception with one of them and change his condition, it can be done only in one way, which is to change your condition, so as to live as they do, provided your life be not already lived thus, as was the case with him who said, Come hither unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden. Thus said he, and they who lived with him saw him, and behold, there was not even the least thing in his manner of life to contradict it. With the silent and truthful eloquence of actual performance his life expresses, even though he had never in his life said these words, his life expresses, "Come hither unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden." He abides by his word, or he himself is the word. He is what he says, and also in this sense, he is the word. John chapter 1:1. All ye that labor and are heavy laden. Strange. His only concern is lest there be a single one who labors and is heavy laden, who does not hear this invitation. Neither does he fear that too many will come. Ah, heart room makes house room. But where wilt thou find heart room, if not in his heart? He leaves it to each one how to understand his invitation. He has a clear conscience about it, for he has invited all those that labor and are heavy laden. But what means it, then, to labor and be heavy laden? Why does he not offer a clearer explanation, so that one may know exactly whom he means? And why is he so chary of his words? Ah, thou narrow-minded one, he is so chary of his words, lest he be narrow-minded. And thou narrow-hearted one, he is so chary of his words, lest he be narrow-hearted. For such is his love, and love has regard to all, as to prevent anyone from troubling and searching his heart, whether he too be among those invited. And he who would insist on a more definite explanation, is he not likely to be some self-loving person who is calculating whether this explanation does not particularly fit himself? One who does not consider that the more of such exact explanations are offered, the more certainly some few would be left in doubt as to whether they were invited. Ah, man, why does thine eye see only thyself? Why is it evil? Because he is good. Matthew chapter 20, verse 15. The invitation to all men opens the arms of him who invites, and thus he stands of aspect everlasting. But no sooner is a closer explanation attempted, which might help one or the other to another kind of certainty, than his aspect would be transformed, and, as it were, a shadow of change would pass over his countenance. I will give you rest. Strange, for then the words, "Come hither unto me," must be understood to mean, "Stay with me. I am rest." Or it is rest to remain with me. It is not then, as in other cases, where he who helps and says, "Come hither," must afterwards say, "Now depart again," explaining to each one where the help he needs is to be found, where the healing herb grows which will cure him, or where the quiet spot is found where he may rest from labor, or where the happier continent exists where one is not heavy laden. But no, he who opens his arms, inviting everyone, ah, if all they that labor and are heavy laden came to him, he would fold them all to his heart, saying, "Stay with me now, for to stay with me is rest." The helper himself is the help. Ah, strange, he who invites everybody and wishes to help everybody, his manner of treating the sick is as if calculated for every sick man, and as if every sick man who comes to him were his only patient. For otherwise, a physician divides his time among many patients, who, however great their number, still are far, far from being all mankind. He will prescribe the medicine, he will say what is to be done, and how it is to be used, and then he will go to some other patient. Or, in case the patient should visit him, he will let him depart. The physician cannot remain sitting all day with one patient, and still less can he have all his patients about him in his home, and yet sit all day with one patient without neglecting the others. For this reason, the helper and his help are not one and the same thing. The help which the physician prescribes is kept with him by the patient all day, so that he may constantly use it, while the physician visits him now and again, or he visits the physician now and again. But if the helper is also the help, why then he will stay with the sick man all day, or the sick man with him. Ah, strange that it is just this helper who invites all men. End of the invitation, section 1, from the first part of Preparation for a Christian Life by Soren Kierkegaard, translated by Lee M. Hollander, read for LibriVox by Sue Anderson.